Come on.
Praise the Lord.
Yeshua.
Praise Yeshua. Once again, another day. Hallelujah. We love Him today. We've been in Colossians for the last couple of weeks, and we're going to be there today. And I don't know after that, probably one more day. But, as Paul is writing to the assembly here at Colossia, he's facing, I know a lot of the same things that the assemblies face today, and that is man that thinks that he knows or that he's gotten some kind of great spiritual inspiration and thinks that that is what is his salvation, instead of trusting in Yeshua, which is, we refer to it and we've called it agnosticism, and where that people think that their knowledge and their is what is moves them closer to God instead of their faith in the Messiah. Or they claim faith in the Messiah and claim that the Messiah is there, but then they want to use their knowledge to, substantiate or whatever. Or that, or they had there as well as now, or then as well as now, they had, I don't know that I'm saying the word right, but asceticism, ascetics, which is people that think they have to deny themselves of certain things, and in order to be in the will of God and be in conformity with God's will, they have to feel like they got to do things or abstain from things, and the New Covenant New Covenant tells us that we are to put our faith in the Messiah, that we are to look at Him, that we are complete in Him, without all of the other things that man wants to put in there. And and that's what Paul here at Colossia here writing to Colossia, is trying to explain to these people, because they've got people coming in amongst them and trying to pervert the gospel that has already been taught to them. And Paul is writing to them, trying to encourage them, if you will, not to listen to that, but to listen and hold on to the faith that they've already received, and to walk in the Messiah, not to walk in what people think they know, or not to walk in the thought that self-denial and abstinence and things like that is going to make you closer to God. But put your faith in Him. And that's what I've been trying to teach here for several months now, is if we got our faith in Him, then everything else will be fulfilled in Him. He will work out, and He will lead us and guide us into all righteousness. He Himself will see that what you and I need to do will be done if we put our faith in Him. And that's what Paul said here in the second chapter, is where we was at. The second chapter, and the I got down to the 10th verse there, where Paul has just warned them to beware of man that might spoil you or take what you've got, which is your faith in the Messiah instead of faith in doing something else. But your faith in Messiah, that he might spoil you. The word here in the King James Version uses the word spoil, which is to take from you through man's philosophy, man's knowledge, what man thinks, or through his vain deceit after the traditions of man. Man has always thought that he could add to what God wants man to do. He's always thought what he added to would make it so much better. But God has always said, don't do that. Just simply, and the gospel is so simple. It's just simply come into obedience to me. Just look at what I asked you to do, and just follow what I asked you to do. When Yahweh came down there at Mount Sinai and he spoke the law, if you will, the law of the commandments to the children of Israel, that's all he spoke to them. That's all he said. And that's the word that will stand forever throughout eternity, is words that God spoke. But from that moment on, man has always tried to improve upon them. Add to what God said. Even and I use the Sabbath as an example. Man has all made their sub-laws that you can't do on the Sabbath in order to observe the Sabbath. Where God just simply asked us not to do any several work that is be considered as work to gain, to rest on that day, not to do any of that kind of work, but to rest on that day and to be with him. That's all God asked of man on the Sabbath day. But man has added all this other stuff that, you can't do this and you can't do that, and God will let us know what we can and can't do if we'll just follow him. He'll let us know what I can or can't do if I'll just follow him and listen to him and not everything else that man has decided. I can't turn a light switch on or off. I'm kindling a fire if I do. And all the stupidity that man has tried to ingest into what God just simply said do. And that's exactly what it is. And it's not only that, but observing the Sabbath, people, you light the candles, you have this meal, you speak this blessing, you speak that blessing, you do this, you do that, at the beginning of a Sabbath. And God didn't say it. God didn't ask all of that. He just said, cease work and rest and be with me. That's all he said. But man is all, and it's not only that one, but it's all, it's what man has done. But and that's what Paul is saying here. Beware lest you follow I'm going to use the word, the stupidity of man. Because he'll spoil you, by his philosophies, by his vain knowledge. Man has always tried to figure out God. And they think that they can figure out God. when the scriptures are as plain as they can be, when it says that God's ways are so far above man's ways as the heavens from the earth is, and that there's no way man is going to find out. But yet man spends his time studying and using this philosophy and all of this to try to figure out who God is, what God is, and what God's going to do. When all we got to do is just put our faith in Him and let Him lead us. And He will lead us, as Yeshua said, He will lead us into all righteousness. Yeshua will see to it that we follow what we need to follow if we'll just put our faith in Him. And that's what Paul here was saying. And after he says that, beware lest you do all of these things, you let them spoil you through their philosophy, their vain deceit, their traditions, and the rudiments of the world, and not after the Messiah. Then he says, for in Him dwelleth all the Godhead bodily, and you are complete in Him. He's trying to say, don't pay no attention to all of this stuff over here. Yeshua is our head, and we are complete in Him. Just put our faith in Him. We're complete in Him. Let Him lead us and guide us. And I can pick up there in the 11th verse where I stopped last week. And pick up there. We are complete in Him, which is the head of all principality and power. He has control over all principality and power. There is no other. He is, and He has control over it. Even this world that we're living in today, as bad as we think it is, and knowing it's going to get worse, He's still in control of it. And it's going according to the way He intends for it to go. As bad as we don't like it, it's still going in His way. In order to accomplish what He has already planned for His body, or His assembly, His church, He's already got planned. Everything is working out in order for the fulfillment of that. And that's something man needs to get under in their minds and their heart, and understanding that all things are working together for the good of them that love Him and are called according to His purpose. All things He is working all things out. Even when I see our president, which I don't care too much about it for him, but I understand through the scriptures, I understand that even what he does is still allowed by the Messiah and God in order for God's plan to be worked out. I want to do things different, and I want to be able to tell Him different, but it don't make any difference. It's still in Him. And it says, you are complete in Him, which is the head of all principality and power, in whom also you are circumcised with the circumcision made without hands, in the putting off of the body of sins of the flesh by the circumcision of Messiah. Man wants to use this body still as an instrument to either do their knowledge or to do their self-denials and their, the things that they do, the abstinences, they're still. God has, in His eyes, when you become His child, He has done away with this body. And in God's eyes, this body is dead. He only looks upon those things of Him. That is, as long as those that are are his, and those that follow him. He only looks upon that. He don't look upon this body. If he looks upon this body, he'd have to sacrifice himself every year in order to get rid of this and to cover it up. But he did it one time in the end here. He did it one time. And now when we are circumcised, now, not in the flesh, but we're circumcised by the Spirit in the heart and mind. We're circumcised with him, not of the flesh, but now of him. And his laws are now not in a box that we would call the ark. They're not in that anymore, but they're written upon the hearts of our minds and our hearts to do them. And he will cause us to do them. His word tells us that he will cause us. His Spirit will cause us to obey those commandments if we put our trust in him. Don't believe that? I'll tell you what he said to Ezekiel. Or he had Ezekiel tell the people. It says, just to start in the 24th verse, it says, for I will take you from, 24th verse of the 36th chapter. For I will take you from among the heathen and gather you out of all countries and will bring you into your own land. Then will I sprinkle clean water upon you, and you shall be clean from all your filthiness, and from all your idols will I cleanse you. A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you. And I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes. And you shall keep my judgments and do. Now a lot of people will say, well, this was a word, this was what he spoke to Israel. Honey, when he came and he died on that cross and he broke down that middle wall of partition that was between us, it was not only Israel now, but we're all made one in the Messiah, which that is what this is referring to, the Messiah, the Spirit. We're all made one in him. Whether you're Jew or Gentile, you're all made one in him. And his Spirit will cause you. Not I got to do it myself. His Spirit will cause me to do the things that I need to do to keep his statutes. And talking about the body that I was talking, this flesh, this body, it says we're buried with him in baptism, where also you are risen with him through the faith of the operation of God, who hath raised him from the dead. And you being dead in your sins and the uncircumcision of your flesh, hath he quickened together with him, having forgiven you all your trespasses. This body is buried. Now I know I still walk in it, but in the eyes of God, this body is buried. This flesh, this sin of flesh here, it is buried with him. And I am raised to walk in the newness of life. Romans tells us, the 6th chapter. We are raised to walk in him. We are buried with him. We put this old body down, this flesh. And now we are raised to walk in the newness of life in him. And his Spirit that he has quickened here, the next verse says here, or last one I just read. That His Spirit quickens this and gives it a life, if you will, or if you want to look at it, it's made alive. Our spirit is made alive to walk in Him, according to Him. And the Scripture says, the blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, all the sin. A lot of people want to use that as that He done away with the commandments, evidently. Because the commandments is what causes us to know that we are sin. Where it says, thou shalt not steal. Well, if you steal, then you have sinned. And that commandment there, that law, is what makes you to know that you have sinned. But he took the sins that was against us, that these laws made us be known of. He took them, the sin, the handwriting of the ordinances, the things that was against us, that the law made visible with you, or manifested itself in you, that you are sinner. He took all of that out of the way and nailed it to His cross. And having spoiled those principalities and powers, He made a show of them openly, triumphing over them in it. Now, I was like so many others when I began to come into this. God began to open my eyes and show me that what I was in previously was actually against Him. Was a false doctrine. And He began to bring me into this. Well, like most other people, George began to use his own imagination, and he began to look at the law and the old covenant, and he began to figure, well, then if that's not what I'm supposed to do, maybe I should be doing this. And I began to start into that. And but seemed like while I was trying to get into it, the more I tried to do about it, the less it made sense. Because I saw I couldn't do it according to what God had said to do. And thankfully, God even jerked me out of that too. And began to reveal to me and show me, the things, and I'm talking about, the laws of the old covenant, that God had them to do, and the moedims, the feasts, well, I should be observing them, but all the time I was trying to observe them, every year I fell short. I knew I wasn't doing it right. It just wasn't right. I wasn't able to do it the way God intended it to do, and God has already told me not to add to or take away from anything, so I can't do it. Until one day He finally told me, of course, in those things I did learn what Yeshua, or what they really represented, and that was our walk, our work that our Messiah was doing. And in that, I was learning. But here people are coming in with, among these, just like, you got their ideals in yourself and your own imaginations of what we ought to be doing, and until Yeshua finally, reveals to us, all of that was for them, but I have fulfilled all of that. So that has waxed old and begun to pass away. Scriptures teaches that. But people were coming in among them, just as they do today. Israel, those who practice the laws in Israel, of course, a lot of Israel don't practice them, but those that do, still, the only way that a Gentile can join in and even keep the feast or anything else, they still have to be circumcised. They still have to, follow what God gave Moses to give to the people. Well, the Gentiles, if they were to follow after Israel's God, they had to do the same thing. Well, today, those that are actually trying to follow the law over there, you still got to do the same thing. They still look at it that if you're going to be proselyted into it, then you have to do it. But, thank God I can serve Him. And I can serve Him without all of that because of the work of the Messiah on Calvary. Because of what He did, not only on this earth when He fulfilled all of that Himself. He did it. Ain't a man ever been able to do it. If it was, then there wouldn't have been no need for Him to have come. If one man could have ever kept the law, there would not have been a use for God to come. But man unable to do it, not one man able to do it, Yeshua Himself came and he fulfilled the law, and then He made the supreme sacrifice that was needed to not only cover but to cleanse man from his sins. He came and fulfilled that. And now, as I said, thank Yeshua, He has revealed, at least unto those of us that are His, He has revealed to us that if you'll just put your trust in me, you look to me for everything, and I myself will lead you through all of that. I will take care of you. I will be everything that you need. But there was people coming in then, even as some people come in now, and as those that would practice the law would tell you now, they come in and tell you still got to do all of this. You need to do all of this. But Paul is telling them here, let no man, and I even got this messed up, well, he's saying, let no man judge you in meat or drink it, that you do this and no man can judge, no man needs to judge. That ain't what he is saying. He's saying you got your faith in the Messiah. You are being led by Him. Let no man come into you and tell you got to do this or you got to do that. You got to keep the feast. You got to do this or you got to do that. You got to observe this and you got to observe that. And if you don't, then you're not a child of God. And that's what Paul is saying. Don't let no man judge you or try to tell you you're not a child of God.
Let no man enforce or impose those things upon you, for God is not imposed among you.
Yeah. Don't let man impose these things or judge you in what you eat or in what you drink or in respect of a holy day or of the new moon or of the Sabbath. And we know that every holy day that God put forth to Israel, every one of them had a Sabbath attached to them.
Yeah.
Every one of them. There's still one Sabbath, and all of those was fulfilled along with the holy days themselves, or the feast days themselves. They were all fulfilled in the Messiah. There's only one that has not yet been fulfilled, and that's the first one that Yahweh ever imposed upon man. Is on the, and that was done at the end of the creation on the last day. He rested. And one day, and that's what this day that we're in today represents, is one day we're all going to rest. If people it's so simple. If people would just understand what Yahweh is saying. And a lot of them says, which are a shadow of things to come, which they get the idea that is what's telling them that they go ahead and do it. No, that they are a shadow of things to come. But howsoever the body, Yeshua's body, Yeshua's assembly, Yeshua's church, that body is of Yeshua, not of all these other things. And that's what he's saying here. But the body, you and I, the body is of the Messiah. Not of all that stuff. It's of the Messiah. And he also says, let no man beguile you of your reward in a voluntary humility, and worshiping of angels, intruding into those things which he had not seen, vainly puffed up by his fleshly mind. That is and I know I've taught you that listen to me and hear me. I teach it and I teach it and I teach it. That is the thing that stands between God and man, is man, and man puts it there, is his own imaginations. They're puffed up by their own imaginations. That's what Adam and Eve was puffed up about. When Satan presented them with a thought that you're not going to die if you eat this fruit, but what's going to happen is you're going to become as gods, knowing good from evil. And and their imaginations took over from there. Yeah, I want to be a god. I want to be like a god. If I eat of this, I'll be like God. Just like man today is always trying to figure out who God is. If he just leave it alone and let God be God and man be man. Their own fleshly minds. And that is the one thing that causes everything else. It causes every sin that man can commit is committed because of his own imaginations. Think about it. Every commandment that God gave man, his failure to do those is because of his own imaginations. Thou shalt not steal. You know, if I had that, I'd be like them. If I went and I got that, I'd be like them. Thou shalt not kill. You know that old man been so mean to me and to my family, and if I just get rid of him, I won't have that problem no more. What is that? Man thinking. His own imagination. Every one of them will lead you to man's imagination that causes him to break that law or that commandment. Every one of them. But man thinks, oh well, because I stole, I've sinned. Yeah, you have, but what caused you to steal to start with? Your own imagination. What caused, well, Adam and Eve eat that fruit, so they sinned. True, they sinned because they eat that fruit. But what caused them to eat that fruit? Their own imagination.
That's right.
What makes Yeshua, when the man came to him and asked him about the commandments, Yeshua told him, said that all of the commandments and the laws was wrapped up in two. And that is to love thy Lord thy God with all thy heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love thy neighbor as thyself. Well, what will keep you from doing that? Your own imagination. You're puffed up by your own fleshly mind. And that's why man comes in among man and tries to get them to do something else.
Yeah.
I got on YouTube where I put the teachings up. I had a man, he didn't like what I taught. So he comes on there and he tells me, I need to stop doing this and I need to stop doing that and calling Yeshua by his name and, live in the New Testament and do this and do that, In the first place, I don't know where man has got a right to try to tell another man how to teach or what to teach. I mean, if you don't want to hear what I got to teach, don't listen to me. You don't need to come in to me and try to tell me what I ought to be doing. Now, if I asked you, okay. Or if he asked me, okay. But in the first place, you don't have the right to come into no man's and try to tell him or her what she or he should be teaching or not teaching, or that they're wrong about this or they're wrong about that. All I do, and you don't hear me. I don't.
You don't want?
I don't debate with nobody. I just teach what Yeshua gives me to teach. And if you don't want to hear it, then you go find somebody you do want to hear.
That's why I'm not going over
That, I'm not, and you trying to come in to me and tell me what I should be doing or how I should be teaching is not going to change my thoughts, and it's not going to change my mind. Of course, I told him what I thought about his reference to what I ought to be doing. I let him know. But, when man comes in and tries to tell you how you ought to worship, if you're worshiping, and I'm talking about those that are truly the Messiah, that's part of his body, those that are truly his, they will worship him by his leading. They will worship him by his leading, not by what other man thinks, but by his leading. And and that's what they're saying. Don't, and that's what Paul's telling them. Let no man fool you or defraud you, or ever how you want to use that word, beguile, of a reward in a voluntary humility, and worshipping of angels, intruding into those things which he hath not seen, vainly puffed up by his own fleshly mind. He's got it in his own mind how you ought to be doing this. And not holding the head. And that's what I've been saying all along. Not holding the head. Yeshua. Our faith in him. Letting him be our God. And not holding the head, which all the body by joints and bands have nourishment, ministered and knit together, increaseth with the increase of God. The only way you can have an increase of God is to hold out and hold the Messiah. Put your complete trust and faith in the Messiah. Then he will lead you and guide you. And you will increase in him, in his knowledge, in his way of worshiping him. You will increase in this. And it says, the 20th verse says, wherefore if you be dead with Messiah, if I'm dead with the Messiah, from the basic principles and things of this world, if I'm dead with him, from all that's other, why, as though living in the world, are you subject to ordinances, these certain laws, which is touch not, taste not, or handle not? Why are you subject to those things? I'm not subject to those things. Now, there may be things I don't do because of my love for the Messiah, but I'm not subject to have to do those things. I believe it's Paul that says, blessed is the man that is not condemned in the things that he does. And he's not condemned in them. Why? Because he follows the Messiah. And he follows the leading of the Messiah. So, though those things are in the world, touch not, taste not, handle not, is in the world, why am I subject to them? I'm not. It says, which all, and this is why, which all are to perish with the using. They're all going to be perished. I've said it in the last 2 or 3 times in the last several teachings. I've brought up the fact about things that's going to end and things that's going to vanish away. Only thing that's going to stay, the only thing that's got the ability to stay throughout eternity is what God spoke, are the words that God spoke. That's the only thing. My words will never pass away. What God speaks to us, what God tells us. Now, what he has man to do in the period of time that man is on the earth in his generation, what God has them to do, everybody's going to pass away. just, the law. In their generation, that's what, and I'm talking about the Mosaic law. In their generation, until the Messiah came, that was what God had man doing, and a man was doing it, and it was administered by man. But it all vanished away upon the coming of the Messiah. The priesthood, all of that and all their doings, all of it vanished away, because now Messiah is our high priest. He's got another priesthood. There's another priesthood now that we follow, that we go to, that makes the sacrifice for that has made the sacrifice for us. We have that, and the other has waxed old and vanished away. It's what God had man to be doing in that generation. Well, God has got man right now. God said that through the foolishness of preaching or prophesying, or ever how you want to say it, evangelizing, or whatever how you want to say it, God has chosen that through that man would hear the word and be saved. But that too is going to pass away. That too is going to wax old and pass away. What does Paul teach us? That, where there's prophecies, they'll vanish. But it's what God has have man to do. Will eventually in its generation, or at the end of its generation, it will pass. Just like the law did. The law of Moses I'm talking about, not what God spoke. It will never pass away. What God spoke to them there on the mount, God himself spoke personally, that will never pass away. But what he had man to do did pass away. Or it should have done passed away, but man tries to keep holding on to things. And now we're to put our faith and trust in the Messiah. And man, he has had man to tell us, or those that are his, about the Messiah and what he's done, and reveal the mystery to man, through man, but even that will eventually pass. When there's no more need for it, when Yeshua comes back, there'll be no more need for that.
That's right.
And it will pass. Just as there's no more need for the Levitical priesthood and all of its ordinances. There's no more need for it. We've got a new priest. We've got a high priest now that's forever. And I hope I'm making people understand that. Touch not, taste not, handle not, which all are to perish with the using, after the commandments and doctrines of man. Every bit of that is after the commandments and doctrines of man. How do I know that? Is because all of God's things that he had man doing at that time has passed away. It's waxed old and passed and vanished away. So anything that's held on to there is after the commandments and doctrines of man. Now, Paul says which things have indeed a show of wisdom and well worship. Yeah, they look good. All this looks good. All of it looks good. But it's not going to do any good. It looks good and it shows humility, if you will, and neglecting of the body. Not doing this, where he's talking about taste not, touch not, taste not, handle not up there.
Yeah.
That's what he's referring to here. And then neglecting of the body. But it's not in any honor to the satisfying of the flesh. It's not going to satisfy the flesh, and it ain't going to satisfy God.
Right.
It's not going to do a thing for this man. And Paul says, if you then be risen with Messiah, seek those things which are above, where Messiah sitteth on the right hand of God. If you've been risen, if you have died, and you've been buried, and now you are raised to walk in the newness of Messiah and after Messiah, that's what this verse here is saying. If you then be risen with Messiah, seek those things which are above, where Messiah sitteth on the right hand of God. Don't seek all of this stuff down here.
That's right.
That has been at one time. But seek the things that's out. You know, a lot of people today, I teach that we are now spiritually, that we're to walk spiritually, that our I can't think of a good word, but the things that we do for God are spiritual things. But a lot of man still wants to hang on to it. No, it ain't. We still do it fleshly. No, we don't. If you are, you're walking in the wrong one. And walking after the wrong one. It's spiritually. And if we are be risen with Messiah, then we're to seek those things, those spiritual things that's above. Set your affliction on things above and not on things on the earth. Those things down here are no longer any value. Seek the Messiah. Walk after him. It says, for you are dead and your life is hid with Messiah in God. You know, scriptures, if we just let the Messiah reveal to us what Scripture says, they're so simple. You know, man makes God so difficult. We got to do this. We got to do that. We got to learn this. My great mystery, you know, of how God done this and how God done that and what God is going to do. You know, what God's going to do. We got this, you know, we got to learn all. No, we got to just follow Messiah. Just put our faith in him and follow his leading. And understand that all these other things had their day in keeping the children of God until the Messiah could come. But when the Messiah comes, now you don't need all of this to keep you. You got the Messiah that will keep you. And that's what it says. For you are dead and your life is hid with Messiah in God. Mm-hmm. When Messiah, our life, shall appear, then shall you also appear with him in glory. When he appears, you're going to appear with him in glory if your life is hid with Messiah in God. Right. So it says mortify or put to death, if you will. Therefore your members, this body, which are upon the earth. And these are the members of the flesh. And Galatians will even give you a little more in this about the flesh and the spirit. But this is, therefore, your mortify, put to death the members which are upon this earth, fornication.
If you do not kill them, then they will kill you.
Yeah. Fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil conspicuance, and covetousness, which is idolatry. You put them to death. For which things' sake the wrath of God cometh on the children of disobedience. In the which also you also walked sometime when you lived in them. You used to walk in those things when you lived in them, but now you're supposed to be following the Messiah, you're supposed to have your faith hid in Him, your life hid in Him. So now you're not no longer walking, or you're no longer to walk in them, and to in the which you also walked sometime when you lived in them, but now you don't live in them. If that's what you're still living in, then you have not cleansed you, or God has not cleansed you from your sins. It says, but now, talking about those that has been, but now you also put off all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communications out of your mouth. Lie not one to another, seeing that ye have put off the old man with his deeds. See, every bit of that is manifestations of the old man.
Yeah.
Every bit of that. And if you manifest that in your life, then there's something wrong. There is something wrong. You can holler, I'm a child of God, all you want, but if these things are manifest in your life, and it don't have to be every one of them, but these things are manifest in your life, something's wrong.
You're known by the fruit it bears.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Lie not one to another, seeing that you have put off the old man with his deeds. He's supposed to be buried, right?
Yeah.
The old man is supposed to be buried.
Mm-hmm.
And you're no longer to walk after it. Romans gives you a very good explanation of that. And have put on the new man, or the new, which is renewed in knowledge, after the image of him that created him. You are renewed, or you are new. And you have been renewed in knowledge after the image of him that created him, or you. Wherefore there is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcision nor uncircumcision, barbarian, Scythian, bond, free, but Messiah is all and in all. Every one. You know, I have people say, I'm a Jew now that I'm a child of God. I'm not a Jew, I'm still a Gentile. But that don't make me not a child of God. All of us that are His and that are in Him, whether we are Jew or Gentile, we're His, and we're part of that body. It don't make any difference. I don't have to holler I'm a Jew now, or I'm Israel, and I do what Israel done and look at what Israel done and try to follow after that. No, I'm still who I was, except now I'm in the body of the Messiah with that, with everyone else. Because when Yeshua come, He made a difference when He called out the children of Israel to be his children. He made a difference between the Jew and the Gentile. And the Gentile was in no way could become proselyted or follow the Israel's God unless they did what Israel did. Unless they confessed and was obedient to what Israel had to do, the Gentile had to do it too. Which the main thing, and that's what gets me today, is what people are thinking about, trying to do keep the law. Well, I'm keeping the law. If you keep the law, then you better be circumcised. And I'm talking about the law of Moses. You better be circumcised. That was the main thing at that time that made a difference. I wanted to say differences, but I can't say it. So made a difference between the Jew and the Gentile was that the Jew or Israel was circumcised and the Gentile wasn't. And that had to be done if you wanted to be a part of them. There was no getting around it. That had to be done if you wanted to be a part of them. If you want to walk in the law, and I'm talking about the law of Moses, the Mosaic law, or however how you want to put it, you better get circumcised. Because that's the main part of that. And I'm talking about fleshly circumcision, not spiritually. If you want to do all of that, then you have to do the main thing. You know, but thank God. Thank Yeshua. He came and fulfilled all of that. And now if I'll just put my faith in Him and submit myself to Him, He will fulfill it. It is fulfilled in me also. Because of Him. It's fulfilled in me also. Because it don't make any difference who we are, Greek or Jew, circumcision or uncircumcision, barbarian, Scythian, bond, free, don't make any difference. But Messiah is all and in all. Jew, Gentile, bond, free, barbarian, Scythian, it don't make any difference. He's all and in all. So, I'm going to try to close off there today. Well, I don't know. Let me. I only have about 6 more verses here, and then it goes to Paul giving advice for our domestic life and way that we should live, and the way the wives and the husbands and the children and the workers and should live. But anyway, let me finish these 5 or 6 verses here. It says, "Put on therefore as the elect of God, holy and beloved bowels of mercies, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, and long suffering, forbearing one another and forgiving one another, even if any man have a quarrel against any, even as Messiah forgave you, so also you do it." And I told you about, a while ago when I was telling you the things of the flesh, Galatians gives you those things. Well, Galatians gives you these things here too. The ones that I just read. And what are they? Those things of the flesh are the fruit of the flesh, isn't it? But these things here are the manifestations of the fruit of the Spirit. Bowels of mercies, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long-suffering, forbearing one another and forgiving one another. Even if man have a quarrel against any, even as Messiah forgave you, so also you do it. And above all of these things, charity, love, which is the bond of perfectness. If you have love, what was the one, or what was the 2 commandments? What was the one thing that was in both of them?
Love.
To love. Love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love thy neighbor as thyself. Love. And let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to the which also you are called in one body, and be you thankful. Let the word of Messiah dwell in you richly in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts to the Master. And whatsoever you do, in word or deed, you do it all in the name of the Master. And I know right here man has changed it, but it's still Yeshua. It always has been and always will be. All in the name of the Master Yeshua, giving thanks to God and the Father by Him. And everything we do in word or deed, it don't make any difference what we do. And if you use that word or deed, in other words, what you say or what you do, that's what he's saying. And that encompasses all of your life, everything in your life. You either doing something or you're saying something or telling someone something or you're doing something. All of your life, that encompasses all of your life. God said, whatsoever you do in those, you do it all in the name of the Master Yeshua. Giving thanks to God and the Father. How? By Him. I thank the Father for this. I thank the Father for that. Father, do this. Father, do that. If you want the Father to do something, then call out His Son's name. You know, people, they're so afraid, I reckon, of saying the name and giving the name and giving praise to that name. They're so afraid that all they'll say is Father. Father this, Father that, Father go this, Father, I'm so glad a Father done this. Father help me do this. Father, that ain't what the Scripture says. The Scripture says you do it in the name of Yeshua. So whenever you ask in the name of Yeshua. And the Father will hear it. Anyway. Most of the rest of the book is advice and, you know, telling how to present your lives, you know, for your domestic life and your everyday life. You know, so it talks about the husband, the wife, the child, the worker. You know, you go out here and you work for someone, it talks about him, how that he is to do his work toward that man, that master, the one he's working for, as though he's doing it toward God. And then it tells the master how to treat those that are under him and are working for him. You know, and he gives all of this. And then he gives an exhortation toward the end there. And you know, gives praise for others and so forth. So, but this will at least we'll conclude this book of Colossians, and I hope that you have. Go ahead and read the rest of it, because it's, you know, it's telling us how that we need to conduct our lives. But anyway, I hope that you have heard something, that Yeshua has given you an insight into something that is important enough that that you learn something from it. In these three lessons that we've been teaching here in Colossians. But above all, don't let man beguile you in a false humility. Don't let him deceive you in what he feels like is a good thing to do for God, to warrant his mercies and his will. But follow the Messiah. Follow Yeshua, and you will be sure and be granted his mercies. And you will be sure to be in his will if you'll just follow the Messiah. Till next time, peace be unto you.